pregnant woman and her family are terrorized by fake HOA enforcers wielding false authority and threats. These imposters, linked to a notorious scammer, prey on vulnerable neighbors with intimidation and lies. But when Rick Banks, a former Delta Force operator, steps in, everything changes in a way no one expected. Just wait until you see how justice was served and why this neighborhood will never be the same again. Melissa Banks, heavy with 8 months of pregnancy, moved slowly out onto the front porch of their modest new home. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the quiet Arizona neighborhood, a place she and Rick had hoped would be a peaceful sanctuary for their growing family. In her hand, she carried a glass of iced tea, the condensation cool against her palm. Inside, Rick lay resting, exhausted after working late into the night. The house was silent, save for the occasional hum of a distant lawnmower. Suddenly, a sharp, unsettling sound shattered the calm, the screech of tires against pavement. Melissa's eyes snapped to the driveway just as a large black SUV came to an abrupt halt, its dark windows reflecting the fading sunlight. The vehicle had no license plates, an immediate red flag. 3 men stepped out. Their appearance was intimidating. Tactical vests wrapped tightly over dark clothing, aviator sunglasses shielding their eyes, and a confidence that felt more threatening than official. One of them marched forward, voice cold and commanding. "You're violating HOA regulations," he declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You dug too close to the sidewalk. That's a breach." Melissa's heart began to pound in her chest, each beat louder and heavier, confusion mixed with rising unease. "We don't have an HOA," she said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady. The man smirked, a crooked grin stretching across his face. "You do now," he said smoothly, producing a clipboard with papers. "Sign these documents, or we call the sheriff." Melissa's breath hitched. Her instinct screamed that something was very wrong. She took a step back, raising her hand slightly, a silent plea for space. But one of the men moved faster. His grip closed on her arm, rough enough to cause a sharp sting. A sudden gasp escaped her lips. Pain flared through her, sharp and terrifying, not just for herself, but for the unborn child she carried. Fear blossomed fully in her chest. Inside the house, a shadow stirred. Behind the thin curtain of the living room window, Rick's silhouette stiffened. The cries from the porch were unmistakable. His eyes snapped open. The quiet Arizona afternoon had shattered. Rick was deep in restless sleep when a sharp, urgent cry pierced the quiet of the house. Melissa's voice, raw and desperate, laced with maternal fear. In an instant, every muscle in Rick's body tensed. Instincts forged in years of military service, flickering to life, like a switch flipped in the dark. He moved silently toward the living room window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see the scene unfolding outside. His eyes locked on the figures, one man pinning Melissa against the porch railing, his grip harsh and unyielding. Another reached slowly toward his waist, fingers twitching near what looked like a weapon. Rick's trained eye caught the subtle details, the patches sewn awkwardly onto tactical vests, the ill-fitting gear, the unfamiliar badges. These were not law enforcement. They were imposters, trying to intimidate a family who had done nothing wrong. Without hesitation, Rick reached for his trusted Sig Sauer, the only weapon he allowed near his family now, an unyielding safeguard for moments when calm was a luxury he could not afford. Quiet as a shadow, he stepped onto the porch, the gravel crunching softly beneath his boots. His voice cut through the tension, steady and cold as the desert night. "Put your hands on the SUV, now." For a heartbeat, time seemed to freeze. The men froze, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. One of them trembled visibly, voice cracking as he stammered, "You're going to call the cops?" Rick's finger tapped the side of his weapon with deliberate calm. "I'm the law here, for now," he said, every word heavy with controlled fury. "You picked the wrong house, the wrong target." Beneath the surface, a slow-burning rage coiled tight inside him. Wounds from the past, years of discipline, and the fierce protective fire for his wife and unborn child, all converging in this moment of reckoning. The imposters had no idea who they were dealing with. Melissa sat on the edge of the couch, clutching Rick's hand with a grip tight enough to leave marks. Her breaths came uneven, shallow, and quick, stress triggering Braxton Hicks' contractions, a cruel reminder that the danger wasn't just outside, but now inside her body, threatening the life growing within. Rick's steady presence was her anchor, his hand warm and reassuring as he murmured calm words meant to soothe both of them. The sound of tires crunching gravel brought a momentary relief. Sheriff Joe Bentley pulled up, his familiar face etched with concern. Joe was more than just the local law. He was Rick's old friend from years gone by, a man who understood what it meant to stand for justice when others faltered. As he stepped inside, the tension in the room seemed to shift, charged now with the promise of accountability. Rick didn't waste time. Together, they confronted the imposters, forcing the truth into the open. The men were connected to Carl Steele's brother, a name notorious in the region for scams and intimidation schemes aimed at vulnerable families. The crooked patches, fake badges, and empty threats now lay exposed as nothing more than a coward's disguise. Sheriff Bentley shook his head slowly, disappointment and frustration evident in his voice. "If Rick hadn't stepped in when he did," he said, glancing at Melissa, "your wife could have ended up in the hospital. Or worse." The imposters sank into themselves, the weight of shame and defeat pressing down on them like a heavy cloak. No words, no bravado left, just silence. Rick didn't celebrate. This wasn't a victory to savor, but a wound to nurse. His anger ran deeper than pride. It was a fierce, burning fury at the injustice that had been allowed to fester. Armed bullies pretending to be officers, threatening a pregnant woman in her own home. This was beyond wrong. It was a violation. That anger rippled beyond the walls of the house. Neighbors whispered. The community bristled. No apology, no empty words from those imposters could ever erase what had been done. Rick's gaze hardened with resolve. This was only the beginning. 2 days later, the quiet Arizona neighborhood awoke to surprising news. Local headlines blazed across TV screens and social media. Fake HOA enforcers arrested for fraud, trespassing, and threats. Reporters swarmed the bank's home, eager to hear from the family whose courage had stopped a dangerous scam in its tracks. Sheriff Joe Bentley, standing firm beside Rick, addressed the cameras with solemn respect. Without this former Delta operator stepping up, these charlatans would have struck again, targeting other families, other vulnerable people. His words carried weight, underscoring the gravity of what had almost happened. When asked if he regretted drawing his weapon, Rick's response was calm but resolute. "I've faced real wars. These cowards chose soft targets, innocent neighbors, a pregnant woman. That stops here." His voice carried the quiet strength of a man who had seen too much to hesitate when his family was threatened. Weeks passed. The tension in the neighborhood slowly gave way to a renewed sense of safety and hope. Then, the happiest news of all, Melissa gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Camden James Banks arrived with quiet determination in his eyes, already part of the family's fierce legacy. Rick, holding his son for the first time, made a silent vow no one would ever threaten his family again. The neighborhood, inspired by their story, came together with one voice and one decision. No HOA would ever be allowed in their community. Not now, not ever. And from that day forward, whenever a stranger in tactical gear tried to sneak down the street, neighbors whispered in warning, "Think twice, you're messing with the banks. Dad's Delta Force." Justice had been served, family restored, and the neighborhood, once shaken, was stronger than ever.